Conklin from Palmer Engineering on the line to help to present what's known as a Vision Zero Louisville plan. I think that's something that you guys will find very interesting. Dirk, would you like to present Will and introduce him?
Yeah, so Metro was asking that we get the involvement from KYTC in a local safety plan. We have a statewide plan, but the statewide plan, of course, much of Kentucky is rural in nature. And so the crashes we have here and the fatalities, there's some differences between the statewide data. And so KYTC, Mike Vaughn with the Highway Safety Improvement Program funds, we hired Palmer to prepare that report for us. They looked through a lot of data and went down a few rabbit holes, I think, but they came up with a good systemic crash analysis for Jefferson County, gave us an action plan that we can start executing, and we have started executing. Some of the street right sizing, the 4 lanes to 3 lanes, was something that was recommended from that plan. So Palmer's done a great job with this. We finished it last year, and I'll let Will Conklin with Palmer Engineering explain more.
Thank you, Dirk. I want to try to share my screen real quick. All right. So thank you for the opportunity to present on the Vision Zero Louisville Safety Report. The project, like Dirk mentioned, was the first one of its kind for KYTC and Louisville Metro, and the consultant team was really excited about it and had a really, I think, a very effective report to come out of it. The consultant team consisted of Palmer, HDR, and Integrated Engineering. So like Dirk mentioned, KYTC partnered with Louisville Metro, and I'm going to give a little bit of a background to why they partnered. But they initiated the Vision Zero Louisville project to develop a data-driven process to identify and prioritize projects. Focus for the project was on non-interstate streets and roadways in Jefferson County. So no interstates were involved, and placed an emphasis on preventing serious injuries and fatality crashes for all modes, pedestrian, bicyclist, vehicles. Prior to this study, Louisville Metro had previously noticed a trend in Jefferson County that was unlike the rest of the state. One of those trends was the increase in roadway fatalities. The chart shows here that the fatal crashes are broken down in bicycle, pedestrian, and vehicles between 2006 and 2018. In Jefferson County, on non-interstate roadways and streets, you can see here that blue is your pedestrian, green is represents your bicycle crashes, and you can see an increase in fatal crashes between 2011 and 2017. And what's unique about this is that in 2017, there was a 10% spike in Jefferson County fatal crashes, but there was there was a decrease of 6% in the state in 2017. One of those contributors of that big difference was pedestrian fatalities. You also noticed that the pedestrian fatalities increased from 2012 to 2018. And there was a spike of bicycle fatal crashes in 2018. This all is given, it gave Louisville concern. And so with the noticeable trend of 23% of fatalities on metro roadways were pedestrian fatalities, they embarked on additional studies. They performed a detailed study on the pedestrian crashes and published the master plan with the vision for Louisville to become the safest and most appealing community for pedestrians. They also did additional study that did a 5-year projection crash analysis to identify trends, high-risk populations, and high-risk or high crash locations. Following the studies, Louisville Metro began coordinating with Mike Vaughn and Jason Swalla and the KYTC because of these big differences between Jefferson County and the state. And, you know, Louisville Metro also shared their long-term commitment to joining Vision Zero network of cities. This is the map taken of the Vision Zero cities. And you can see that not too many are in the vicinity of Kentucky, and most of them are on the coast. So why Vision Zero? Why? First, it's important to know why we're doing what we're doing. So why are we establishing a long-term vision of zero fatalities? It's because the cost of fatal and serious injury crashes are just too much, not only to the immediate families and individuals who are severely injured or killed, but just also to society. So the numbers here is an average cost in Kentucky of a fatal crash is just shy of 9.3 million. Now, the following slides are going to have some dollars associated with them, and they're 2017 dollars if it's talking about Kentucky dollars. And these are specific to Kentucky. They're not a national average. They're based on Kentucky specific data. So the average cost of a serious injury crash is just over $530,000. And when you consider the societal cost, these are societal costs, which is also known as comprehensive. And they're meant to capture all the impacts that result from the crash. So it's every piece that, it's not just the damage of the vehicle, it's not just the damage to the person, it's lost wages, it's insurance, it's everything that's all in comprehensive. So in Kentucky in 2017, we had a societal cost of $8.9 billion, while the US had $433 billion. So this kind of breaks down the CAPCO cost. You've got K for killed, A for suspected serious injury, B for minor injury, and C possible injury, and O is property damage only. And you can see from those costs off the side that as the severity decreases, the cost is lesser. So preclude this, that we did a crash study for the Vision Zero, and we looked at between 2013 and 2017 crash data. So this chart shows the 127,000 crashes that we looked at during that time period and applied the comprehensive cost per crash to the crash severities and came up with almost $8 billion. If you take the top two, the fatal and serious injury, and this kind of adds the emphasis, the significance to while we look at fatal and serious injury crashes, is that they make up 2% of all Louisville crashes, but resulted in 57% of the cost of the user and society at large. The Vision Zero Louisville Safety Report, it covers the systemic approach to safety. It also covered how the risk factors were identified and how they were used to prioritize projects. But due to today's time and to subject, we're going to just discuss on the identified areas of opportunity and how they relate to the statewide averages or areas of opportunities identified in the previous two strategic highway safety plans. The first step in the project was to start with a database. We collected lots of data, and I guess I need to give a shout out to KIPDA for being part of the process. They gave us a lot of data and gave us a lot of insight on helping us complete the report. We started out with Kentucky's HIS data, Kentucky State Police crash data, UK's transportation centers data, metro data, and some speed data from the big data companies. All this data was collected and we compiled to a usable database. Just quickly, we started out in Jefferson County with 157,000 crashes between 2013 and 2017. We removed just over 26,000 crashes that were on the interstates. Due to some spatial issues with the data, we had to remove 2%, or just about 3,500 crashes, because we couldn't adjoin them to a GIS data. So we were left with 127,174 crashes. Here's what we call a heat map or a density for all the crashes. in that 127,000. You can see that there's some familiar corridors like 31W, Preston Highway, Bardstown Road, Shelbyville Road, where the higher frequency of crashes occurred. You can also see that there's a higher density of crashes in the downtown area.
Can I ask a question, Will?
Absolutely.
Is that on that prior heat map slide? Are those crashes in downtown proper or on I-65? Or kind of like, it's hard to tell from there.
Well, we took out any crash that was coded as being on interstate, whatever. So anything that was coded as that.
Okay, thank you.
It's so K and A crashes. So since the focus, like I mentioned, the report focused on fatal and serious injury crashes. This is the density of the fatal and serious injury crashes. And you can see where maybe some corridors appear differently. Cane Run sticks out a little bit more than it did previously. And then, a little bit more of the West End shows up differently than previously. And I'll pop back so you can look at maybe the West End difference. When you start talking about this area in here versus when it's in here, when you're looking at just KAs. So that can mean a lot of things, and it's kind of important to us the way we look at it because the emphasis was on K and A crashes. So over time, the serious injury crashes trended down between 2013 and 2017, which is your dark blue on top, and then but the fatal crashes continue to increase through the crash period, which is the lighter blue down at the bottom. At the very beginning of doing a crash analysis, we kind of stepped back and did like an broader view of a crash analysis before we got down into the weeds. And one of the things that really stuck out to us was 53% of all the fatal and serious injury crashes occurred on 16 routes. Those 16 are highlighted there, but the top ones were, of course, US 31W, which was 9% of the KAs, US 31E, which is 5%, and then 1934, which is part of that would be Cane Run, it was about 4%. This crash data, if you notice the time period, is not when Dixie Highway was completed with this recent construction. So the areas of opportunity, just so everybody's kind of the same page, that's familiar with reports, we changed the words emphasis areas to areas of opportunity. So just so we're all on the same page. It's nothing new, it's just we've changed the term. So at the beginning of the project, when we first started, the 2015 to 2019 Strategic Highway Safety Plan was current. And then before we finished, the current 2020 to 2024 plan was released. For the report, we referenced the areas of opportunities from the statewide safety plans and then compared them to what areas of opportunities were identified in the Vision Zero Louisville Safety Plan. You can see that from a couple of changes between the statewide plan, which are, previously commercial vehicle was an emphasis area or area of opportunity, and so was vehicle management. And new mature drivers was in a previous version, but then it was dropped in the current version. The Vision Zero Louisville plan identified all areas of opportunity from the current plan, plus the new mature drivers, 4-lane highways, environmental justice areas, and lighting. And this is an eye chart. And there's a lot of data. I don't want to, go through too much of it, but this kind of exemplifies why something was chosen as an emphasis area. So what you've got is your upper areas of opportunity over here, and you've got your crash data, all crashes, serious injury crashes, and fatal crashes. And then you've got the previous strategic highway safety plan, the current one, and then whether or not these were all on the Vision Zero action plan. So to start with, we had intersections. So 55% of all fatal crashes occurred in an intersection in Jefferson County. The current plan for Kentucky, so statewide, only 16% of the fatal crashes occurred in an intersection. And I'm not going to, I hate to fast forward, but if you look right below here, most of us know that roadway departure is a main area of opportunity for the statewide, because 64% of all the fatal crashes are roadway departure type crashes. The project team elected to keep roadway departure as a area of opportunity, not because of the 20% of the crashes occurred on fatal roads, but in addition to that, only 9% of the roadway departure crashes, or 9% of all crashes are roadway departure crashes, but 20% of the fatal crashes are roadway departure crashes. So there's an overrepresentation of the fatal crashes and all crashes. So, and I'll go into some of these later, but non-motorized or pedestrian and bicycles is a big difference. Only 2% of all crashes are pedestrian or bicycles, while 29% of all fatal crashes are pedestrian or bicyclists. And when you compare it to the state, it's only 11%. So it's significantly overrepresented. Same thing with motorcycles. Same thing with impaired driving. Environmental justice there's not a statewide comparison or anything statewide to compare it to, nor is there for lighting. But we'll describe the concern of the environmental justice areas later. But you can see the lighting overrepresentation as compared for the fatal crashes as compared to the all crashes. So in Louisville, 63% of all the crashes occurred at intersections. 63% of the fatal and serious injury crashes occurred at the intersection. This is a map came straight out of the report that shows the poorest performing signalized intersections. And just as a leadway, we do provide a significant amount of data in the technical appendix that has almost every list that I'm about ready to talk about has a 50 list of whatever it is that we're talking about. So some low cost countermeasures that were identified, that are for intersections are reflective backplates, dedicated turn lanes, innovative intersections, such as a roundabout. Looking at intersections in the West End or the downtown, over time, the population is spread out and away from the West End, resulting in lower traffic volumes. So there could be a study done to see that an existing signal with that low of traffic volumes could be an issue, and removing the signal could be an improvement on safety. This was bottom left-hand side of the picture is a mini roundabout. That's another alternative for certain situations. It was just constructed in Elizabethtown. 6%, only 6% of the crashes were roadway departure crashes, but 23% of the fatal crashes were roadway departure crashes. Here's some potential roadway departure corridors that would need to be studied. Some low-cost countermeasures include striping, signing, guardrail improvements, high friction. Some more expensive countermeasures is roadway widening, shoulder widening, super elevation, rumble strips. An area of opportunity that's unique to Louisville is the 4-lane undivided roadways, where there is an overrepresentation of crashes on these types of roadways. Under certain traffic volumes, there's roadways. These roadways could function safer if they were converted to 3-lane roadways. This conversion it's often called as a roadway reconfiguration, or a road diet previously called, or right sizing the roadway. Louisville Metro and District 5 have been coordinating, collaborating on these projects of late. And, you know, the most popular reconfiguration is converting a 4-lane to a 3-lane with a 2-way left turn lane. And studies have shown that there's about a 19 to 47% reduction in all crashes. And here's a map that we did of some corridors that were identified based on the data that was available. Intersection with highest number of pedestrians. So pedestrians are the most vulnerable users on Louisville's roadway system. Although they only make up 2% of the crashes, but it's 26% of all fatal crashes. At the state level, pedestrians only make up about 11% of the fatal crashes. Between 2013 and 2017, Louisville experienced a 68% increase in pedestrian fatal and serious injury crashes, which is more than double the national average. You can see from this list of intersections that Broadway occurs several times, which relates a lot to the density that you see previously on those density maps of the KA crashes. Bicyclists is another non-motorized user that's vulnerable. Of the 760 crashes, 10% were fatal, and were fatal or serious injury crashes. 60% were less severe injuries. You can see here that there's this is the intersections that were identified as having an intersection with bicycle crashes. So environmental justice area, this is unique to Louisville. Well, let me put this, I don't know that it's unique to Louisville, but it was a finding of the report that has not been seen or maybe even studied anywhere else. The study used the definition of the environmental justice area, which is a low income and or minority population in a census block that is more than twice the region's average for those groups, which is where we got this from, the KIPDA definition of environmental justice areas. The key study finding was that the crash rate per person is 2.5 times higher in these areas. You can see from the chart here, 19% of the area is an EJ area. 30% of the population is EJ. 41% of all the crashes occurred in EJ. 43% of the fatal and serious injury crashes occurred in EJ, and 63% of the pedestrian fatal and serious injury crashes occurred in the EJ area. Placing an emphasis on the EJ areas will be critical in gaining the community buy-in and achieving goals of Vision Zero. Motorcyclists are considered a vulnerable user on the roadway. And you can see that motoricyclists make up about 18% of the fatal crashes. Here are a couple of driver behavior areas of opportunities that were identified. Aggressive driving trends to be an issue in Jefferson County and statewide. Aggressive driving was involved in 29% of the fatal crashes. When categorized serious injury crashes by the time of day, there's an increase in the trend from noon to 6. And then the serious injury crashes trend down from noon to 6, and then it trends down after the 6 o'clock. But if you look at fatal, it seems to be consistent from noon on. Similar trend if you do the same thing, same categorization with distracted driving. There seems to be more excessive, the increase seems to be more excessive around the PM peak hours. This could be because drivers could be more distracted driving home than driving to work. There may be more on something on their mind trying to accomplish something driving from work than driving to work. Lighting, Louisville has a significant emphasis on lighting. Louisville Metro has done a lot of work on reviewing lighting in other metropolitan areas, other cities. And so our study focused on that the best that we could. 42% of all fatal crashes occurred during low light or dark conditions. Reduced visibility during low light conditions is absolutely less safe for pedestrians. 48% of the pedestrian crashes and 85% of fatal pedestrian crashes occur during low visibility. This study, as you can see, identified signalized intersections. It also identified non-signalized intersections with a history of nighttime crashes. This is something that the data is very difficult to look through to identify whether or not adequate lighting is available, but future studies could be done to further that analysis.